Dear students, hope you are all well. So students, in the last class we learned about what is environment, how do animals depend on plants for their survival, that is shelter, oxygen and food they needed, and the different types of animals, that is herbivorous, carnivorous and omnivorous, and the different living and non-living things. Now let's move forward. In the last class, we saw how animals depend on plants, right? Now, do plants depend on animals? Do they depend? Plants do depend on animal children? Yes, plants do depend on animal. Plants use the carbon dioxide that animals breathe out to make food. Plants depend on animals to produce seeds. Okay? Many kinds of flowering plants means many plants which flower, which gives us flower, depends on insects like bees, moths, butterflies to produce food with healthy seeds. Let's move forward. Plants depend on animals to disperse seeds. What is disperse seeds? Means spreading seeds. When animals take the food or seeds as food, they act as willing transporters. Willing transporters means when they move from one place to another, the seeds fall. Some foods have structures like hooks that get stuck to their fur or feathers. It gets stuck, the seeds get stuck to their fur or feathers when they are flying while moving from one place to another. Seeds also spreads through their droppings. Plants also depend on animals for adding nutrients in the soil. They also add for adding nutrients in the soil like animal waste as well as the dead bodies provide nutrients into the soil, means when they get decomposed the soil becomes rich again. Let's move forward. Now let's learn about food chain. Now you all know living things depend upon each other for food. We cannot survive right without food and feeding. Their interdependence means they depend among themselves for food is called a food chain. Now look at the first picture. Here we have a grasshopper, right? Now a grasshopper eats grass or leaves of the plants. Now who eats the grasshopper? A bird eats the grasshopper. Now how will you look at the food chain? You always have to look at the second picture. The second picture eats the first. The third picture eats the second. The fourth eats the third. And the fifth eats the fourth. It goes like that. The food chain goes like that. Okay. Now who eats the bird? A snake eats the bird. Who eats the snake? An owl eats the snake. So here we can see a food chain is formed. Now look at the second picture. In the second picture we have a rat. Who eats the grains and seeds of the plants? Who eats the rat? An owl eats the rat. Now look at the third picture. In the third picture, a rabbit eats carrot. Okay? A fox eats the rabbit and a lion eats the fox. Now look at the last picture. We can see a grasshopper eats grass. A frog eats the grasshopper. A snake eats the frog. And who eats the snake? An eagle eats the snake. Thus we can see in nature there are different types of food chain. In any one, if any one connection is lost in a food chain, then the food chain comes to an end. That means if any animal or if any plant or a food is missing from there, then that food chain comes to an end. Then that will not be called as a food chain. Let's move forward. That's a food web. Now looking at this picture, you might be very confused, right? It is confusing. There is an interlink of various food chain. Now in this, it's called a food web. Interlink means there are two or three food chains together. So that is called as a food web. Yes, this is a food web. It looks like a spider's web, right? Right. A food web is the natural interconnection of food chains and a graphical representation of what eats what in an ecological community. Now, ecological community means a group of two or more species of animals found in the same area. Now, in your area also you might be finding different species of animal. Different species of animal means you might be finding cat, dog, right? So they are called as different species of animal. In this picture, we can see squirrels, rabbits, mice, and seed eating birds. Now, they all feed on plants, but they are the food of more than one animal. Like rabbits, squirrel, mice, they are the food of foxes, hawks, and owls. Now, some animal even eat two animals, okay? Mice and the seed eating birds are also the food of snakes. So the snakes eats mice and the seed eating birds. Plants are eaten by insects. You might be knowing now. Plants are eaten by the insects. Insects are eaten by birds. Birds are eaten by other animals and other animals are eaten by another animals. In this way, the cycle goes on continuously in the nature. Let's move forward. In the last slide, we saw many animals and plants. Other animals eat animals that live on plants. Thus, plants form the main support of any food chain. Plant is the main support for any food chain. Now, you have seen so many food chains in the slides before. Plant is always there over there, right? So, plant form the main support for any food chain. But from where do plants get their food? Do you all know? Plants get their food from where? Now, plants are eaten by others. But where do plants get their food? Let's see that. Plants prepare their own food with the help of sunlight. What all things do plants need? We will see that. Sunlight, carbon dioxide from the air, water, and minerals from the soil. This process of preparing food in plants is called photosynthesis. So, this process of the plant preparing food is called as photosynthesis. In return, they give us oxygen, right? They give us oxygen, no? That is used for breathing by all living things. Let's move forward. Now let's learn about the important cycles in the environment and how these cycles help to maintain the environmental balance in nature. Now look at the first picture. The first picture shows the carbon dioxide cycle. We can see here plants give us oxygen which is used for breathing, right? By all living things. Living things give out carbon dioxide which is necessary for plants, right? Use the carbon dioxide for making their food. Just now we learned, no? They use for making their food with the process called photosynthesis. Now, oxygen is given out in the process and gets added to the air again. Now, next we have a water cycle. Look at the second picture. Because of this water cycle, all living things in the environment get water. Now next we have a decomposition cycle. Now microorganisms, that are small microorganisms living in the soil, which are in the soil, helps in decomposition of plants residue, gets animals excreta, etc. All these things mix with the soil and is used for plants for their growth. Now when plants and animals die, they decompose, right? They decompose in the soil. Now when they decompose, they make the soil rich again, right? Which is good for growing crops and plants. This is an important cycle. Now when these different cycle goes uninterrupted means there is no disturbance, environmental balance is maintained, which is very important for the existence of all the living things. Let's move forward. That is your homework, as you have to find the answers of these questions. Plants prepare their food with the help of dash and dash. A food web is the dash of food. what is a food chain, and the last one is what are the different types of cycles in nature. The chapter ends over here. Thank you for listening, children. Goodbye. Take care.